Again, I want to thank you for being here for the 2018 Kansas Master Teacher Awards Ceremony. This year, we honor our 7 master teachers and their contributions to Kansas children and their families. We do have, however, some notable guests in the audience. I would ask that as I introduce you, if you would please stand briefly and that the audience would hold their applause until everyone's been introduced. Allison Garrett, president of Emporia State University. She's breaking the rules, she's not going to stand. David Cordell, provost of Emporia State University. Don't break the rules. Deanna K, vice president for administration and finance, Emporia State University. Dr. Ken Weaver, dean of the Teachers College. Carol Strickland, director of the National Teachers Hall of Fame. Carla Wiscombe, Kansas Board of Regents. Dina Horst, Kansas State Board of Education. We also have Representative Sidney Carlin from Manhattan with us, I hope, okay. Representative Mark Schreiber of Emporia. Senator Bruce Givens of El Dorado. We also have Blair Benedict, who is representing U.S. Representative Roger Marshall. And Roger Erickson, who can also say go Hornets, representing Congressman Ron Estes. Why? We want to recognize our selection committee, Mark Farr with KNEA, Joni Hayden and Kim Hett, our 2017 Kansas Master Teachers on that selection committee, Paul Reichenberger, the ESU student representative, and again, Dina Horst, who is also on that selection committee with the Kansas State Board of Ed. We want to recognize our ESU local planning committee, and particularly Lucy Usey. Where are you, Lucy? Hiding out. Would you please stand? We let them break the rules for you, you bet. If you are a school principal, would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you. And we'd like to recognize school superintendents who are present. I'm already standing. And we have some local Board of Education members. We'd like to recognize you. If you would stand, please. And finally, would all former master teachers in attendance please stand? And finally, I want to recognize all the nominees for the 2018 Master Teacher. A full list of those individuals who are nominated is listed in your program book. We want to congratulate each one of them as being nominated. It is an honor and demonstration of outstanding service to their district. Now, before I call our 2018 Master Teachers to the stage, I need to recognize Bank of America for their ongoing support of the Master Teacher Program. Since 1980, they have pledged over $100,000 to permanently endow the Kansas Master Teacher Awards. This year, an additional $8,000 was given by Bank of America Charitable Foundation to further underwrite the program and give every 2018 Master Teacher a $1,000 stipend for professional development. That's impressive. Heck, if I'd had that $1,000, I would probably become a superintendent or something. I think you all should do that. Tonight, we are joined by Julie Downs, the Community Relations Manager at Bank of America. Julie, if you would please come to the stage, we'd like you to help present the awards. Let's express our appreciation again for Bank of America. Finally, the reason none of you were able to eat a full plate of food. At this time, we'll be inviting the 2018 Kansas Master Teachers to join us on the stage. This year's Kansas Master Teachers are Connstance Allmond, High Incidence Intellectual Disability Teacher with USD 490 El Dorado. Our next master teacher is Deanna Burton, 7th grade social studies teacher with USD 383, Manhattan, Ogden. Next is Abby Cornelius, library media specialist with USD 229, Blue Valley. And Todd Flory, 4th grade teacher in USD 385, Andover. Our next master teacher is Chitra Harris, high school science teacher with USD 259, Wichita. Matt Irby, high school science teacher, USD 253, Emporia. And our final 2018 Kansas Master Teacher is Kimberly Schneweis, middle school art teacher, USD 489, Hayes. And now it is my privilege to ask President Garrett to officially pronounce and present the awards.
Based on the authority given to me by the Kansas Board of Regents, it is my honor to name each of you a Kansas Master Teacher. Congratulations.
We'll begin recognizing and presenting the awards individually at this time. As the awards are presented, audience members and family members are welcome to come forward to take photos. We'd encourage that. So if you'll all have your seat, we will. Or would they stay here? Would they stay up? Okay, stay here. Our first master teacher, Connstance Allmond. And now, Deanna Burton. And our next master teacher, Abby Cornelius. And Todd Flory. Our next master teacher is Chitra Harris. and Matt Irby. Last but not least, because no middle school teacher will ever be least, Kimberly Schneweis.
So now we come to the real treat of the evening. As good as everything's been so far, this is the cherry on the cake. When we have all of our master teachers come up and speak to you from their head and from their heart about whatever they feel is important to share with you as they're being recognized as one of the finest teachers in Kansas this evening. I do want to take a minute and give you an idea of what these teachers did to complete the packet for their nomination. So we had a committee convened over the summer to review the criteria and thought that we might want to do something a little bit different and just tweak the focus on how is the teacher being effective in the classroom, being effective with parents, being effective with principals, being effective with community members. And so as a result of that conversation, we drafted a revised portfolio. And then we sent that out across the state to have it reviewed and then tweaked it and so finalized that. And that was the process used this go-round for the application. And I just want to read to you the criteria for the nomination portfolio. So first of all, the teacher described the learning community in which they taught. So the instructions were: describe your learning community, include information such as building and district size, economic, social, and cultural diversity, geographic location, community support, and any other factor which influences student learning in the classroom. All right? And you'll see a bit of a flow so that one sets the stage for the next, sets the stage for the next. The second requirement was the philosophy of teaching. Describe how your teaching practice demonstrates and embodies your teaching philosophy. The third item, or the third criterion, was outstanding professional practice. Excuse me. Describe a highly successful lesson. How did you measure its success? How do you plan to use what you learned from its success to improve your teaching practice? How have you been successful with hard-to-reach students? What are you currently finding most challenging about teaching? Why is it challenging? What steps are you taking to improve your practice in this area? The next item was outstanding community engagement. Describe your outreach to parents, families, and communities. How have your experiences in community engagement and service increased the impact on your students and the learning community that you described in the previous criterion? Continuous professional growth. How are you a more effective teacher today than you were when you began teaching? What did you do to improve, and how do you plan to continue to grow professionally? Where do you see yourself going next in your professional growth? Give an example of a need you saw in your classroom. How did you know it was a need? How did you address that need, and what was the outcome? The next to the last one, professional service. List your involvement in professional organizations, dates served, and level of engagement and leadership at the state, local, and national levels. How has this involvement directly or indirectly impacted student learning? So it's not list all the great things you've done. How have those involvements impacted the learning of the students in your classes? And then finally, the letters of support. So we restricted the letters of support to 4, 1 each from educational colleagues, supervisors, former or present students, and community members, parents, or community officials. So these are what the selection committee had to work with, this rich, rich, rich portfolio to identify these 7. And so, as you can see, this, just completing the portfolio was a hefty task. And it was even heftier identifying those who were the 7 finalists, the 7 master teachers. So it gives me great good fortune now to introduce each of these to you. I will do this individually, and after I finish my introduction of the master teacher, then the master teacher will come forward and we will have the pleasure of listening to this person address us. Connie Allmond's philosophy is teaching the whole student, socially, emotionally, and academically. As a special education teacher, her goal is for her students to become independent learners who advocate for themselves and learn realistic skills that they will use the rest of their lives. Her superintendent states, over the past 11 years, I have been fortunate to witness the day-to-day interactions that evidence Connie's passion and commitment. I have seen the types of stories that move you to tears because they share the power of a teacher that truly loves her students. A colleague and parent of a son with autism writes, her heart and mind are always in the mode of helping families and children, even when she is not on the clock. Whatever we are planning, or whichever issue we are trying to resolve, she enlightens us on how it affects her students or makes suggestions for changes that will include all students. Another parent shares, her phone calls, text, emails, or face-to-face conversations with us truly show her dedication to our daughter. We know a true partnership is what it takes for school success, and we have that with Mrs. Allmond. That daughter enthusiastically states, I think middle school has been good for me. School is still kind of hard, but not the make my tummy hurts kind of hard. I think Mrs. Allmond knows how to do kids like me. Please welcome Connstance Allmond, master teacher.
Okay. First, I'd just like to thank everybody that came in support of me. I'd like to thank the Lord above who gave me the gift to teach. Thank Lucy and all the Emporia staff for making our trip to Topeka and today such a special day. It was a wonderful time. A huge thank you to all my family and their support and belief in me, and especially my husband, Tony. A special thanks goes to my special education bosses and colleagues who have supported me through many ups and downs. Mrs. King and Mrs. Davis, my principal and vice principal, you always stand by me and have helped me grow my program stronger every year. And all the other teachers in my building and district who have supported my students and my program. And my final thanks goes to my paraeducators, who I could not have gotten this honor without. This is my 19th year of teaching, and my program has been described as unique, and I'm proud to say that it is. I teach 6th through 8th grade students with intellectual disabilities, and I work on making them as independent and part of their community. We work on social skills, cooking, hygiene, and even how to have a conversation without texting it. Every day is a new adventure for me, and I never know what to expect when I go to work, which I love. My students have taught me so much over the years. I have learned that building relationships with my students and parents helps us all build a better learning environment. I have laughed and cried over the years and would like to share just a few quick memories with you. I had a young man early in my teaching career who changed my life, who made me realize how fast relationships can develop between teachers and a child. This young man had possible Tourette's and some other social and emotional issues, and I took him in with open arms. I had no idea that he was being abused at home. He was only with me a couple months when some things started happening. Marks on the students' necks, me calling SRS, And then me receiving a call from the mental health center and the counselor telling me Mom had just been in and wanted to know what it was going to take for her to give up her child. I immediately went to the SRO, which is our school resource officer, and he said he would personally go to the house and ask Mom if this was true. The SRO gave me a code that if Mom told him she wanted to give up her child, that the office would call me and I would keep this student from going home with his mom since she had 2 other children she picked up. My heart dropped when I heard the code word come from the office. But this young man trusted me enough to stay, play games, and visit until the SRO and SRS worker showed up in my classroom. Then my heart shattered. When the student grabbed a hold of me, sobbing and not understanding what was happening to his world, and said, "Please, Mrs. Allmond, let me go home with you. I will be good." I hugged him and comforted him and cried as he was taken out of my classroom. I went to many court dates with this young man, and he always came over and told me thanks for being there. After that, I have always made a point to let my students know how much I truly care about them and that they are all unique and a gift from God. On the lighter side, I was having a health class one year, which includes learning about our bodies and sex education. I'm always honest with my students when it comes to questions that they may have about sex, as my students always giggle when you say sex. I have found that most of the time they are just wanting basic information. A lot of times I ask them what they know before we start. I will never forget when a young lady, before we start, I will never forget a young lady telling me that she had heard that if you jump up and down after sex, you will never get pregnant. And another girl saying, "No, my mom said that as long as you mark an X on the calendar each month, you wouldn't get pregnant." And ladies, you may have to explain that one to the guys. I remember embarrassing a vice principal who came in to observe during my health class. One of my students asked where the baby came out of a woman. I drew a very simple picture on the board and proceeded to explain. In talking with my vice principal later, he said he would not have been able to be so calm, open, and keep a straight face. I told him the reason I had explained this to the class was that the young man's dog had just had puppies, and his parents would not let him watch this experience. By the time the student did see the puppies, the mother dog was cleaning them up. So he thought the puppies had come out of the mother's mouth and wanted to know if this was where human babies came out of women. I have so many more stories, but I feel my success as a teacher has been from all the many challenges and experiences I have had over the years. I am constantly adapting and changing to the needs of my students. I may complain at times about the paperwork and all the extra time I put into teaching, but when I get a note from a student telling me they love me, or a student gives me a hug, or they say they missed me when I was only gone for a day, I remember why I do what I do. I am very honored to receive this award and want to leave you with one last saying. Children with special needs aren't given to strong teachers. They're given to ordinary, everyday teachers. Teaching a child with special needs doesn't take a special teacher. It makes a teacher special. Thank you.
Deanna Burton believes that the day you think you are a great teacher, that is the day your problems begin. As a classroom teacher, her lesson design is always a work in progress. Her self-evaluation is constant, and her quest for a meaningful, thoughtful lesson is continually present in her mind. A colleague shares her consistent promotion of excellence and her pursuit of creative approaches to teaching, while supporting a continuous growth model for herself and her students, place her at the top of her profession. Her principal states she is typically one of the first to try to take a look at an issue from a variety of perspectives. She is able to look outside herself, her bias, her classroom, and relate to what is going on at the building, community, state, and national levels. She is a master at creating opportunities for others to learn, create, share, and become transparent. A former student writes, "In years past, I have never truly enjoyed social studies. And in fact, it was the class I dreaded going to the most. Mrs. Burton has changed my attitude towards the subject, and now it is one of my favorite classes." A parent writes, "Mrs. Burton continues to make learning fun. She is transparent, soft-spoken, attentive, and an empathic listener. Truly a teacher who made a difference in my boys', more than one, lives." Please welcome Deanna Burton, Master Teacher.
Imagine a crowded gym. The fans are screaming, the game is tense. We're well into the third overtime. The 7th grade girls B basketball team has never won a game that season. The anticipation is almost unbearable. I am leaning down looking at my bench in desperation. I see my best player, my only hope, sitting at the end of the bench. And I'm thinking, why is she not in the game? I motioned for her to get in the game, and she said, "But coach." And I responded saying, "Get in the game." And she said, "But coach." And I said, "Don't but coach me, get in the game." So she did. And we played about 1 more minute. And the ref came over to me and gives me a T. I don't know what's wrong with him. I said, "What are you doing that for?" And he said, and I just now say, "Let's back up just for a few minutes." The star player had already fouled out during regulation time. This is the third overtime, okay? I just shook my head. Not a smart move on my part. How I have laughed, along with many other people I know, over that incident. This is why I stayed doing what I'm doing. I went through a program called TESSA at one point in my career, where other teachers came into my classroom, gathered data on students that I called upon, possibly due to gender, maybe low or high SES, or various other observations. I happened to have one of my own sons in my 5th grade class that year, so trying to stay on top of things, that evening I asked him, "Do you ever feel that I feel a bias towards boys or girls?" And he said, "Heck no, you're mean to everyone." This is why I stay doing what I'm doing. He's sitting over there. Whether I'm in the classroom, on the basketball court, running a study lab, or directing a school play, the bottom line is I'm having fun, guiding, challenging, and expecting students and myself to be the best that I can be. The basis of everything I do is to let kids know that I value them as individuals. We all want to be valued. I have faith that all my students can learn, just in a variety of ways and at different rates. It is my job to find those avenues. We can all test everything we want, come up with new innovative ideas, but if we have not built those relationships, we won't get very far. I counted up last night that I have had approximately 3,300 students in my elementary and middle school classes throughout my 42 years of education. I hope and pray that I've made a difference in their lives. It is easy to teach those willing to conform, always eager students, but we know that it is an unrealistic classroom situation. It might even be a bit boring. We somehow all encounter those students with exceptionalities in our classrooms that frustrate us, or better yet, enrich us in so many ways. Those students alone have made me a better teacher. I am so thankful for that. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. You may never know how special it makes it for all of us. A special thanks goes out to my husband, our son and his wife, my friends and colleagues who made the trip tonight, and those who stand by me daily. You all, along with my students throughout the years, are why I stay doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Abby Cornelius views libraries as the great equalizer, providing assistance and access for all. Her mission is to make sure that all feel welcomed, valued, and important. Her goal is to encourage students to think freely, challenge authority, and seek the knowledge that will help them feel successful and satisfied. Her building principle states she collaborates with classroom teachers to implement lessons that are hands-on, creative, and innovative. She understands how learning happens and develops instructional plans that are motivating to all students. A colleague states, in addition to her mind-blowing teaching and collaboration skills, her ability to mentor colleagues with acute attention to process and relationship, and her willingness to teach everything all the time, Abby has the biggest heart of anyone here at Blue Valley North. A student writes, "One thing that sets Mrs. Cornelius apart is that she inspires students to work hard to achieve academic excellence. It takes a special person to motivate and engage students in creative writing and literature. She succeeds in the endeavor of educator, mentor, and role model." A parent shares, "My sons go to school early most days to be in the library, to get tutoring, meet with student groups, gather resources, and just to feed off the kinetic energy. The students love the library." Wow. And most importantly, the librarian. Please welcome Abby Cornelius, master teacher.
Gosh, Ken, was that a library slam? Hello, everyone. Gosh, I should have prepared. Just kidding, I prepared. I asked my 5-year-old what I should say, and she said, this is what I should say. "I'm proud of myself. I love you all. People will say congratulations to all." It's kind of like a poem, but that's okay. So, thank you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not done. I actually have a lot to say, which probably doesn't surprise all of my colleagues and awesome supporters over there. I want to start by thanking my amazing library partner, Terry Sneathen. I'm super lucky to have her as a friend first and a colleague second, and I'm really proud of our relationship. I'm proud of our innovation. I'm proud of our longevity, and I'm totally making her cry right now. Check. I'm lucky to work in a district that values the role that libraries play in the school community, and it's rare that one of us gets recognized without the other, so it was just luck for me this year, and she really deserves to be right here next to me, so she is. Also, thanks to my brilliant parents. They're both doctors. My mom's a PhD in microbiology. My dad's an MD specializing in pediatric asthma. They've always supported my family and I in unbelievable and amazing ways, and we've had quite a ride recently, so thank you, Mom and Dad. And now my mom's crying now, too. Check. Just kidding. Thank you to Emporia State and everybody here who has just made us have excellent couple weeks, and we feel very honored, and it's been a lovely day. And also thanks to my friends and colleagues who traveled to this day, and superintendents and administrators. There's just all kinds of people here, so it's super nice. I love you. Thank you for coming and supporting me, and every day with my crazy ideas. And finally, thanks to my husband, Bo, my daughter, B. I'm definitely a product of the system. I teach at the high school I graduated from. I attended 2 elementaries, 2 middle schools, and had the option to move to a second high school as Blue Valley grew and changed. And I'm a K through 12 Blue Valley girl. I started my career as a math teacher in Missouri until I found my gold mine, which is my library. And after teaching for 17 years, I have come to one conclusion. Dun, dun, dun. We've been doing it wrong. I had an interesting moment in class yesterday. It was actually very fortuitous that this happened today. We're playing a card game in the library called Anaxi, and students have these 3 words, and they have to say how the words interact with each other, kind of overlapping ways. And they earn points for having answers that no one else has, kind of like categories on steroids. And in between one of the rounds, a student said, and this is not a joke, he actually said this yesterday, "Oh, I get it, we're practicing creativity to make up for the fact that school has beaten it all out of us." And he was trying to be snarky in like 15-year-old boy way, but I actually looked at him and very seriously said, "That's exactly what we're doing because you're exactly right." And I don't think he actually expected that that is what I would say to him. But I also see it in my kindergartner's day as well. She's 5, turning 6 tomorrow, and she takes timed math tests in kindergarten. She got sick at school one morning and had to come home from school, and I told her, "I'm so sorry you got sick and threw up at school." And she was like, "I'm not, because now I get to play with Bubby all day and my morning work is too easy." And I was like, "Awesome, you'd rather get sick than do boring seat work." So that's great. But all of these things, all of these stories motivate me to start or join a revolution. And I don't do that by forcing students to memorize facts or focus on things they learn, but focus on the process of learning. And in the library, we are the only ones in every school that are responsible for teaching curriculum to every student every year. And the horrifying part of that is that there's not a licensed school librarian in every state, in every school in the state of Kansas. And so to me, that's terrifying, because that just means that there's kids in Kansas who are not getting curriculum that everyone else is getting in other states, in other schools, and to me that's insane. So our curriculum is learning. We have standards that say things like students gather, evaluate, and use sources to make a claim. That's what learning is, and actually some journalists probably need to come and sit in on my class. I could help them, it'd be great. I try to encourage, or sometimes strong arm or coerce my colleagues to stop grading the product and start grading the process, although I'd really rather skip the grades altogether, frankly. Students, I like for them to be goats that feel their things out on their own with their turned up tails and their pokey horns and their penchant for testing boundaries, rather than sheep with their tails down and their heads down, following along behind some leader. And in my library, in our library, we have few rules. We teach and encourage students to question authority, to think for themselves. And I'm feeling hopeful that we can prepare the next generation to solve the serious and species-ending problems that we currently face. The Parkland teens, the students like mine yesterday who questioned the game we played, those students remind me of these things daily. And I love working with teenagers. I love giving them permission to have a different opinion than their parents or a different opinion than me. I love seeing them be brave and bold and feel that we owe it to them. We owe it to them to rip our comfort zones open, to question the system ourselves, to drop the high stakes testing philosophy, and even question the idea that tests are in any way a good representation of what a student knows or what they want to know. So times have changed. It's their world and we're living in it and sometimes destroying it. So I vote that we should make more goats and fewer sheep. Thank you.
Todd Flory believes teaching specific academic skills is an important part of education. But what is more important is helping students develop a curiosity for learning. Educators need to model that it is okay to make mistakes, and in fact, that making mistakes and at times failing is how we learn and grow. He wants his students to be secure with taking academic risk, trying new things, and being comfortable with the freedom to fail. A colleague writes, not only is Todd an intensely curious and energetic educator, he has an unyielding passion to build strong and positive relationships with each student, and a personal mission to have those students exceed their own expectations. His building principle states he is always trying new technology, educational games, manipulatives, or other engaging resources that link student learning to the world. He takes a truly student-centered approach to teaching. A former student shares, Mr. Flory really believed in my abilities and loaned a hand when I needed help. He knows that each student has potential and a set of special skills, and he knows how to encourage them in a positive way. A fellow teacher states, he is a teacher that designs experiences throughout the day that make kids want to come to school to learn, and then continue to talk and share about their learning long after the school day or year has concluded. Please welcome Todd Flory, Master Teacher.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Emporia State, for hosting us today. It's been a great day. Any success that I have as an educator is the product of great educators who have helped, mentored, and inspired me. I want to thank my parents and sisters who, even before I knew I wanted to go into education, modeled the qualities that espouse great educators. I want to thank my cooperating teacher when I was student teaching for helping instill high expectations. I feel very fortunate to work in a progressive and innovative district in Andover. I have much support from the district level and many mentors throughout the district who have helped to guide me through different project ideas and helped inspire me to think big. I want to thank my principal for showing trust in me as a professional and allowing me the freedom to move ahead with all the crazy projects that I may think up, and to go ahead without asking permission first. And I want to thank my 4th grade team at Wheatland for collaborating with me, helping me stay on top of things that I may forget, and being the best teammates I could ask for. So this award is just as much theirs as it is mine. I didn't grow up wanting to be an educator or choosing to be an educator, but like many teachers, education chose me. After college, I worked as a journalist in McPherson and Salina, and then did 2 years of volunteer service through my church denomination in Chicago and in DC. I spent my days working on social justice issues on Capitol Hill and ate my lunches in a soup kitchen in the church where our office was located. I saw firsthand how an education or a lack thereof can make a difference in somebody's life. And I knew that I wanted to do something that made a positive impact on the lives of others. Education is a rising tide. It can lift up all facets of a society. Equality education is the world's best hope for equality, justice, and peace. I'm proud to be a Kansas educator, and despite the challenges of funding, increased class size, and overemphasis on standardized testing, Kansas educators are leading the way in innovation and preparing our students for the challenges of the real world. Our students have used creativity, communication skills, and problem solving in a number of projects. Many of our projects have a global component to them, because I believe that if we expect our students to change the world, then they need to be aware of the issues, people, and places of the world. So one of those projects involved covering fake news and media literacy. Students researched 2 real news stories and wrote a 3rd fake news story. Then connecting with another class somewhere in the world, they presented these 3 stories and they had to do research to find out which one was false. Another project was a coding challenge with an all-girls college in Mexico. Each class created a coding project that would tell about our culture and heritage. Aside from learning coding skills, my students also learned about the importance of another culture and issues such as gender equality and global educational access. And every year, our students do a Skype Around the World Day project, where we connect with classes and countries all around the world. This March, our 4th graders stayed at school from 8 a.m. until midnight, so yes, midnight for 4th graders, so they could talk to people in 20 different countries, learn about their culture, school system, geography, economy, teaching and learning from one another, and sharing things about Kansas. Our students learned the rules of cricket from an Australian class, played rock, paper, scissors with a class in Japan, saw a cooking demonstration in Uruguay, and had a crash course in Swahili from a teacher in Kenya. The students also realized that while staying at school until midnight is an exciting time, I think they all gained a new appreciation for sleep. And since we didn't have school the next day, if they woke up a little bit cranky the next day, well, sorry parents, but they had a whole spring break to recover. Through that project, we developed empathy, and our students discovered that kids all over the world, from different cultures with different religious backgrounds, may look and sound differently than ours, all have the same hopes and dreams. By connecting people from different backgrounds, we make the world safer. We break down the barriers of fear, ignorance, and the unknown. When we get to know one another, there is no more us and them. The world is at our students' fingertips, and the more we connect the world around them, the more they have an opportunity to make a positive difference. When we expand the walls of our classroom for our students, when we create global citizens in a global classroom, they can truly change the world. Thank you all for your continued support and commitment to education.
Chitra Harris works in her classroom to promote new ways of thinking that prepare students for the diverse workforce of tomorrow. Through interactive labs that connect them to real-world experiences, she sets a high standard for her students and raises the bar in order to challenge them to excel and to adapt. A colleague writes her dedication to her students and the lab preparation she goes through to engage students is phenomenal. She is so eager to help not only her students, but also other teachers who are wanting to give their students the opportunity to learn about forensic science. An administrator states, Chitra's curriculum comes from a strong science foundation and a passion to provide hands-on learning activities. I have observed her classroom instruction and interacted with her students. She is one of the most creative, energetic, and thoroughly professional educators I know. A current student shares, my 3 older brothers constantly told me that the most interesting part of their day was forensic science. They explained that her class is one of the most educating and exciting science classes in the school, and that Mrs. Harris is one of their favorite teachers. Changing my schedule to fit in her class was one of the best decisions I made. A community member writes, as I watch her in action, inspiring the youth in this community, I secretly wish I had a teacher like Chitra in my high school days, the kind of educator that inspires and alters the course of a young, malleable life. Please welcome Chitra Harris, Master Teacher.
Well, I feel I ran the educator marathon and got bragging rights. But I think the bragging rights go to the people that influenced me as I grew up. I think first I have to say a big thank you to all the dedicated teachers I had at the school. And then I have to thank my God-fearing parents. I have to thank all my friends, my colleagues, my family, and administrators who support me and make me what I am. And I also have to be thankful for all the students who bring so much of diversity and enrich my experiences. My sincere thanks to this outstanding selection committee and to the wonderful people at Emporia State. Also, I have to thank the generous Bank of America Charitable Foundation and the visionary family of that Broken Arrow in finding me worthy of being a master teacher. Growing up, throughout my school life, my motto was to do my utmost for the highest. And I worked through the ranks of the Girl Scouts too, and the idea of doing a good turn every day was very meaningful, so I took time to do that. But now I think most of the good turns are accounted for by just being a little more patient with those students in my class. In India, the early education system was the Gurukulam or the homeschool, where the students would stay with the teacher, learn all their skills, and then be sent home only as young adults to take part in their duties in society. But I cannot do that. At the end of the day, I'm waiting to send the students home, right? But I love them enough to hold them to a higher standard. I want them not only to learn the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic, I would like them to learn the 3 C's, to be kind, caring, and considerate as well. So I would say that the respect for the teacher helps them to learn better. If they don't think the teacher is good enough, I don't think they would want to learn anything from her. I also believe I had to set a higher standard for myself in trying to get them to work and to understand. I had to engage and motivate them, and really, it was difficult to win them over. But now, I have that same respect that my students in India gave me. And it's really awesome when I teach forensic science, and it's such a wonderful vehicle to transfer learning. Whatever they have learned throughout their school years, they can apply that to solve problems in forensic science. It's cross-curricular skills, and that's why my classes are so interesting, because being part of that pathway that leads them to a career, they are exposed to real-life skills which they can use. They understand how they can use it, and it has a focus, so they really like taking this class. I think everything students learn have to be tied into how they can use it, and it becomes more meaningful to them. I actually raise the bar, and I see my students go over and above, and it's really nice. And sometimes I have to smile when they say, "What are you doing in this classroom, Miss Harris? You should be in the FBI." Yeah, I'm grateful to all these students and to every educator and every person that's here wishing us well today. Thank you, and God bless.
Matt Irby believes all children need a caring and stimulating atmosphere where they can develop their intellectual, emotional, physical, and social skills. His job as an educator is to ensure students have this safe learning environment and ideally feel that their teacher is just as passionate about them as he is about the content that is being taught. His building principle states he has helped create many opportunities for students through designing new innovative pathways of learning, using cutting-edge technology for instruction, and being involved with students outside of school through coaching tennis. A parent writes, he has a creative, appropriate, and amazingly relevant sense of humor. He knows exactly when to inject a little humor into a teaching or coaching session so that it makes an impact but is never at the expense of his students or his players' self-esteem. A former student shares, he always cared genuinely about each student's performance and found ways to help us improve. When we did not understand a concept, he found new ways to approach the learning process, such as drawing on the board, using models, or having us teach others. A colleague states, he has navigated through his career with a growth mindset. He is consistently reflective of his delivery, instruction, and content. His ability to identify problems, analyze pitfalls, and then brainstorm creative solutions are well respected within the professional community and beyond. Please welcome Matt Irby, Master Teacher.
Well, first I'd like to say how neat it is to be from Emporia to receive this award. It's pretty amazing, the feeling to live in a town and teach in a district that relishes and supports education so much. I can't tell you how many people that I didn't even know send me letters and gift cards congratulating me. I was told this does come with perks. In fact, Sue McKinney told me as soon as I was awarded this, she would actually talk to me now, because she's a master teacher. I was told that there's a lot of former master teachers from my school. I was told there's some meetings that I should be aware of, but I was told the hazing of new members is pretty brutal, so we'll have to think about that. I didn't know how to attack this, what my emotions would be. I'm not the most emotional person. But as I thought about it, I just wanted to reflect on the people who had an impact on myself and kind of molded me to be the teacher I am now. My parents who are both here, are both teachers, so I grew up in a household which emphasized education and being a well-rounded student. And I don't mean to brag, but I think everybody can see I'm probably the most well-rounded person up here. Now, being well-rounded not only pertained to appreciating different subjects, as my dad is an English teacher, my mom mainly art and math, starting off anyway. I was being involved in athletics and music as well. Not only did my parents show me how much I should value my own education, they constantly showed me how much teaching meant to them. Both parents are still teaching. My dad has taught for 45 years now, and my mom for 30 years, taking a hiatus to raise a family. My dad still locks himself in his back room to grade 30-plus hours of English papers over Christmas break. And just last summer, my mom spent well over 200 hours developing curriculum for just one new art class. I had the best role models a person could ever ask for, so even being half the teachers they are is an extreme accomplishment. Moving on to high school, one of my first teachers that had an impact in science for me was a teacher, Mr. Greenwood. He was the first teacher to really kind of make science feel cool. I have fond memories of the interactive classes he had, which really got me thinking that science could be a career for me. I had another science teacher in high school, Mr. Gleason, who opened my eyes as well. Mr. Gleason was a pretty intimidating character, and for time-wise, I thought I'd cut out the story, but I think I should share it. My freshman year, having him in physical science, I had just gotten some braces called a Herbst device, and it was kind of looks like shocks or struts, and every time you open your mouth, they kind of go back and forth. What I did not know, during one lesson, I yawned rather large, which certain chemistry lessons deserve a big yawn. Sorry, Scott. What I did not know is that these little rods, if they came out far enough, they would get stuck. So after my big yawn, my mouth is wide open, and I begin to freak out. I covered my mouth, and I was, just to kind of, well, the reason I'm saying this, I was so scared that he would do something. I just sat there with covering my mouth for about the next 5 minutes. Well, of course, he called on me to answer a question, and at that point, I had to, and he just looks at me funny, and he says, "Irby, get the hell out of here." It's like, okay. So the reason I bring him up is my second year having him in chemistry 2, he had a test review for us one night, bought us pizza, and this tough Vietnam War veteran began to tell us how much we meant to him, how our hard work made his job rewarding. And it's something that has carried over to me. I now do those study reviews for some of my upper level classes. So even a tough and gruff person, which I probably follow that mold, showed his students how much they meant to him. When I got to college here at ESU, I began to see the pure passion certain professors had for their subjects and how infectious that could be to their students. One professor in particular stood out. In Dr. Neufeld's environmental physiology class, he would read us a passage or two about the adaptive physiology camels have developed to survive in the desert. Each and every day, he would come in, and it was like a kid opening a present. He would open his book, be amazed, and read us a fact. One fact that I still remember was this. At night, as camels exhale through their nose, the water vapor they exhale cools and condenses, forming water droplets. Dehydrated camels have very dry nostrils, which are specially developed to then hold on to those water droplets, retaining water, minimizing how much water they lose. It's a fun fact, and if you don't like my speech, at least you learned something tonight, right? the amazing thing with science is I could have a new camel fact every day, which is amazing. And his passion for that, how could I not instill that and have that same amazement as he did? When I was lucky enough to get my first and only teaching position here at Emporia High School, I also immediately benefited and grew because of my building principals. My first principal, Scott Sheldon, saw I had potential to be a school teacher and got me involved with the building leadership team and several other teaching committees early on. He and my current principal, Britton Hart, value teacher collaboration and input in helping make school decisions. Being in many communities over the years and seeing how our ideas are taken into consideration is a huge tool in building trust and a positive atmosphere in our school. I'm lucky to have had that my whole teaching career. And lastly, I want to talk about colleagues in my own department. I was thrust into a department of 9 other teachers, some of whom are here today. And my first year, I would say their average teaching experience was probably over 25 years. So I was definitely the new kid on the block. We had some memorable and passionate department meetings, but it was, yes, they know what I'm talking about. But it was because of how dedicated they were to teaching. In my department alone, I have taught with 3 other master teachers, a Kansas Teacher of the Year nominee, a Horizon Award winner, and countless other teachers with awards that I don't have time to mention here. Seeing teachers who taught for 25 to 40 years and continuously offered me help, came in early to set up labs, stayed late to help students, and came in to work on the weekends was the norm for my department. I couldn't have had a better mentor to model what I should strive to be as a teacher, like I had with my department chair, John Harklerode. I couldn't have had a better and more professional set of people to be around who showed me the pride they had in their work and the pride I should have teaching science classes at Emporia High School. They were a positive example to me that I hope I am to my current colleagues. And then finally, I want to talk about a few people who have recently made me realize I can still become a better educator. One of my Emporia State professors, Dr. Schrock, and 2 of my current teaching colleagues who are here tonight have shown me that not only should you be dedicated to your students, you should be dedicated to your profession. I haven't seen many people as passionate about the teaching profession as they are. My dislike for politics early on in my career was an excuse to not be as involved with school issues as I should have been until the last couple of years. These individuals have attended countless meetings at the national, state, district, and building levels, and in Dr. Schrock's case, international meetings. And they are aware of seemingly every educational policy and decision that could affect teachers and subsequently our students. They inform, they march, and they fight for the rights of all teachers and staff to make our schools as good as possible. They have changed my perception how I need to be as a teacher advocate. I can no longer stand by and rely solely on others to carry the mantle for our continuous battle to properly educate our kids. If there is ever a policy or decision in the future that does not have our students' best interests in mind, I am now ready to join the fight with them even more. So in closing, I've learned a lot from many people who've made me the teacher I am today. I realize I'm far from a perfect teacher, and as a science teacher, I definitely know the need to continue to adapt and evolve my teaching to best suit the needs of my students. I realize I must continue to stay involved with my school and try and be a positive voice and advocate for teachers in and outside of my building. While I don't know what the future holds for my educational career, I also realize I'm lucky to be in such an honorable profession, and I'm extremely humbled to receive this recognition. Thank you.
Kim Schneweis is convinced that the process of making art is more important than the actual product the student completes. She seeks to create opportunities for students to immerse themselves in a project that allows them to make personal connections and express themselves. A colleague and parent writes, she designs lessons that not only meet the state and national standards, but also challenge her students to create original works of art that are meaningful to them. Her classroom is balanced. Students are engaged, they enjoy their work, and they can express themselves freely in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Her former student writes, she keeps her class interesting and switches it up every year. While in her class, I was never bored with a lesson. Some were difficult at the start, but once accomplished, it felt great. A professional associate shares, Kim's dedication to teaching art is clearly seen in her active participation in local, state, and national art education organizations. Kim shares her love of art education with not only her students at Hayes Middle School, but also to local children, college students, and adults in the Hayes community through organizations such as the Hayes Art Council. Her principal writes, in addition to being her administrator and former colleague, I know Kim from a student perspective. She was my art teacher in elementary school. She was only at the school I attended for 1 year, but I remember fondly having fun with the creative projects that she supplied. Please welcome Kim Schneweis, master teacher.
Well, good evening, and thank you to everyone who came. Thank you to all the Hayes people who drove out. That's not a short drive, so thank you to all of you who came out tonight. And thanks to my husband for being my driver and always listening to my thoughts at the end of a teaching day. So we all need that sounding board. Since I'm the only art teacher up here, I do have to put in a plug for art education. We've spent the day marveling at the beautiful buildings, the architecture of everything from the one-room schoolhouse to the Guffler Mansion to all these beautiful buildings here at Emporia State University. And you know, that art does surround us. The design is all around us. And it all starts when the little kid picks up a crayon and makes a mark on a piece of paper, and they're just so excited and just see the magic in what they've done. Art is often named as someone's favorite class, and I take it very seriously that I need to nurture that and create that whimsy and that magic, and do no harm. Definitely that I don't, that I keep their confidence up and let them see that they truly can create wonderful pieces. I also want them to recognize that art is all around them, that in the things they choose, in their video games, their cell phone, the clothes they pick, and even the packaging of the food they purchase is affected by art. Okay, I'm afraid the battery's dead. I can use my teacher voice. But I also want them to retain that confidence that in themselves, that confidence that little kid has when they pick up that crayon for the first time. I have, as was mentioned, I've been teaching long enough to see my former students become members of my community, including my own supervisor. So that's a unique experience. Several of my coworkers were my former students, and I think it's important that we as teachers and administrators and parents remember that our biggest job is to help develop these young students into productive and contributing adults. So they're going to become part of our community or part of your community. Because they do. They become our veterinarians, our doctors, and our waitresses, and all the people in our community that serve us. I think that we need to help them learn how to think, not what to think. We need to encourage them to be engaged members of their community, and that's not always easy, because anymore it's a lot easier to just send a text. Showing up is becoming a lost art. So I thank all of you who showed up tonight, because showing up is difficult sometimes. Whoops. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. I'm going to be doing. Well, as I was saying, I think I think that we need to encourage our students to become engaged members of our community, and the importance of showing up and learning how to think and not just what to think. So we need to give them the tools and then give them the encouragement to engage in their community and to show up and speak up with the same confidence of those 4-year-olds with a red crayon. So thank you again for coming, and thank you, Emporia State, for this beautiful day.
You know, my staff that's here is going to not believe this, but I listen. I really do. And I have a script that I prepared, and I want to stick to that, but I'm going to become a goat for just a minute instead of a sheep, Abby. There is a tiny baby back there. Is it right back there somewhere? Where's that tiny baby? Is she still here? Would you bring that baby up here for just a second? There's a reason for this. 61 years ago, 1957, there was a young couple, a young teacher from Axtell, Kansas. Their whole staff came to support Teresa McDonald Coffey, who was named a Kansas master teacher in 1957. And this young couple brought their 1-year-old baby. And at the end of the ceremony, that 1-year-old baby was placed up here on the table. So come right on up here. And I'm going to have you just put her right here beside Matt, or between Matt and
Chitra's granddaughter.
Chitra. Oh, good. Perfect. Perfect. All right, now you're going to want to step back because we're going to get some pictures. Because 61 years ago they took pictures. And Teresa Coffey wrote on the picture that was taken, "Future Master Teacher." I was that baby. The point is, my friends, that was a self-fulfilling legacy set by that master teacher, and I would challenge all of you, as I am on my ramp here, to do the same and make sure that we have strong teachers in our future. Chitra, congratulations. Thank you. I do want to thank you for being here tonight. Your attendance demonstrates your support and respect for our 2018 master teachers and the thousands of Kansas educators that they represent. As one of our master teachers' references said in their nomination materials, they are perfect representatives of everything that is great in Kansas classrooms and schools. And indeed, great things are happening in Kansas public schools. They are effective, they are engaging, and they are, to quote a recent expert opinion, efficient. For those who like to plan ahead, you're welcome. Representative Schreiber, Senator Givens, you're welcome. For those who like to plan ahead, nomination information and event details for the 2019 Kansas Master Teacher Award will be posted on the college website. The local planning committee would like to thank all of you for your continued support of this outstanding teacher award program. On the May 15th, 1960 episode of What's My Line, Bonnie Harrington signed the chalkboard, and after being told only that she was in a salaried service profession, she was questioned by the panel. Her answers to their questions about whether her work was indoors or outdoors, physical or mental, so on and so forth, were primarily not yes or no, but sometimes. It seemed that Bonnie Harrington was a jack of all trades. The panel was stumped. What profession had such broad, vague, and all-encompassing demands? You know that profession. Bonnie Harrington was a kindergarten teacher. What's My Line never featured a teacher again. It was too difficult for the panel to define their line with yes/no questions. Connie, Deanna, Abby, Todd, Chitra, Matt, Kimberly, we know what your line is, and we're extremely proud of it, as well as your accomplishments. Congratulations once again to you, our 2018 Kansas Master Teachers. Thank you to those who represent families, colleagues, and supporters for joining us this evening. And a special thanks to Emporia State University for a 64-year legacy of recognizing career accomplishments of those who represent the great educators of the great state of Kansas. Thank you and good night.